All right, good afternoon, everyone. To the May edition of the Technical Advisory Committee meeting. So with that, we do have a quorum, right? Okay, great. We will move forward. I think the first item up is the roll call.
Jeff Sims.
Here.
Mike Williams. Richard Perez. Brian McCarthy.
Here.
Jonathan Scott. Melanie Calloway. I believe they were both excused. Brian Pissarro.
Here.
Michael English.
Here.
Robert Frey and Anya Quinones, they were also both excused. Clay Hollis. Gina Evans.
Here.
Leland Dykes.
Here.
Christiana Tis.
Here.
Julie Ham. Mark Hudson.
Mark Hudson's here.
Danny Jorgensen. She is virtual. Sophia Garantiva.
Here.
Melissa Leinhart.
Here.
Nicole Sutton.
Here.
And Sarah Caper was also excused as Richard Rank present. Okay, and do we have 9 in the room?
I think we have 10.
Yes.
We do have an in-person quorum that has been met. Chair, would you please call for a vote of consent for remote member participation?
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is the new item. So we just need, do we need a vote or a motion?
The motion to start and then a vote.
Okay, so this looks like it's going to be kind of a formality at each of these meetings. We need a motion for the consent to allow remote participants to have voting in the hearings. Thanks.
Mark Hudson, so moved.
Thank you, Mark. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
You have a second?
Who was
So
the second?
Go ahead, Sophia. Oh, Sophia Garantiva.
get that, Sophia? Okay, and so all in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Thank you very much. Next up is public comment. There are no visitors in the room today. Is there any online? Does not appear to be. Another second. Okay, with that, we will move on to the next item, which is the approval of the April 4th minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to bring up regarding the minutes? Moving right along, no comments? All right. With that, can I have a motion to accept the April minutes?
Approval.
Please state your name when you make the motion.
Leland Dykes, move approval.
Thank you, Leland. Can I get a second?
Nicole Sutton, second.
Thank you, Nicole. Assuming no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, we are ready to move on to action items. First up is the UPWP approval for FY 23-24.
And good morning, everyone, or afternoon. I'm Amber Simmons. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. The action item you have before you is the fiscal year 23-24 Unified Planning Work Program, which is essentially the TPO's program of projects and budget for the next 2 fiscal years. The UPWP is updated every 2 years, and the TPO fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. Amendments are done as needed, especially between the first and second fiscal year. And the purpose of the UPWP is to both document and coordinate federal and state funding for transportation planning that's conducted by the TPO, DOT, HART, and the Commission on Transportation Disadvantaged. It also outlines our major planning tasks and complies with federal and state rules. There are 6 planning tasks and a new regional task called the SCTPA Support and Shared Task. This was developed as part of a regional project to make the UPWP tables more uniform and to clearly define the task where transfer of funds between MPOs take place. The only items in this new task are items that both transfer funds between MPOs and require an MOU or agreement to do so. Other coordinated efforts will remain in our task 6. The overall project funding is listed on this slide. The majority of our funding comes from FHWA, PL, or planning, and surface transportation block grants, or SU grants. This year, PL and FTA funds are combined and are treated all as if they are all PL funds. The deobligated funds that were added to fiscal year 23 are $55,170 in PL and $145,000 in SU funds for a total of $200,170 in deobligated funds. And the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged funds are also now included. We are also very pleased to report that our current disadvantaged business enterprise, or DBE as it's commonly referred to, is at 14.5% of consultant projects, and our state goal is 10.65. This slide gives you an overview of the UPWP development schedule. The first preliminary draft was sent to DOT on March 15th. Committee comments were in April, and we are on schedule with the final work plan for adoption this month. July 1st is the new fiscal year the UPWP will become effective. These are the new project requests that were received. From HART, we received a transit development plan, and we're offering a 50-50 match to assist HART with this study. From the City of Tampa, we had several Vision Zero projects, citywide streetlight evaluation, signal timing program, corridor studies and roadway safety assessments for multiple corridors, and a streetcar feasibility study for Phase 4. From Hillsborough County, we also received a truck route plan. And moving on to our critical path projects. These next few slides highlight the TPO critical path projects, ongoing projects that began in fiscal year 22 and will continue in fiscal year 23, optional recommended projects, and recommended projects with alternative funding. Critical path projects are either previously approved that will commence in 2023 or are needed as part of the maintaining compliance with federal and state rules. The estimated cost for the critical path projects is $1.265 million. TPO other recommended projects have an estimated combined cost of approximately $1 million. It's the Plant City Southeast Master Plan and support, Temple Terrace Multimodal District update or other planning, completion of the HART bus stop inventory, support for HART Transit Development Plan, road safety assessments for county roads in the City of Tampa, resiliency return on investment evaluations for projects, metropolitan priorities for state rail planning in support of the MPOAC, and additional data collection of multimodal counts, health data, etc. From committee recommendations, the projects which are contingent on additional funding have been more clearly defined with estimated costs. Also, per the recommendation, the wording has been changed to reflect potential funding rather than imply any particular funding source. These are the recommended projects that are contingent on other funding. These are our fiscal year 22 projects that are in progress and will conclude in fiscal year 23 with estimated costs of about $80,000 and then the remaining 2022 funds. Our recommended action today is to approve the fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 UPWP. Questions, comments?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Amber, for the overview. Do we have questions or discussions on what was covered today? No? Okay. Seemed like everything was summarized pretty well. Got your ducks in a row, that's great. So do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion. Brian Passard, T. Barton.
Thank you, Brian.
Second. Mark Hudson.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is the TPO apportionment plan draft. This is a pretty interesting one because it's talking about the makeup of the TPO board. So something I don't think that changes all that often. Certainly an item we want to listen to and examine carefully for any comments.
I just want to be able to share my screen for those online. Thank you. Can the folks online see my screen? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Watkins. I'm with the TPO staff. I'm here today to present some information on the TPO membership apportionment plan. So what exactly is an apportionment plan? Well, it's a document that outlines the voting membership of the MPO board, as well as outlines the geographic planning area. So for the Hillsborough MPO, it is the Hillsborough County line. And why are we doing this? Well, it's something that's required both in state and federal law. Federal law requires that any area, urbanized area with 50,000 or more, must be represented by having an MPO designated for those areas. Additionally, within state statute, it requires MPOs to review the decennial census information every 10 years and reevaluate its apportioned membership. So this has happened for the past few decades, and the last time we did this was about 2012, 2013. So in developing the apportionment plan, there were a few things that staff took into consideration from direction from the policy committee. And those three things were the importance of coordination and compliance with government in the sunshine. As you can imagine, often elected officials would need to meet with transportation agencies to discuss different transportation policies and investments. And if both of those positions discuss that topic, it would need to be publicly advertised and published in a way that was consistent with government in the sunshine. In fact, it was for this reason about a decade ago why the state statute was modified to require that the Florida Department of Transportation serve in the capacity as a non-voting technical advisor for that pure fact of needing to easily and seamlessly coordinate and become in compliance with the state statute. Another thing the policy committee shared was there may be concern of less accountability to those voting members of the TPO board who are not elected officials. We wanted to do a quick analysis of the other MPOs across the state, and that's also in your packet, which breaks down the representation of those agency officials as well as the percentage of voting membership that comes from elected officials in that 100% vote. And what we found at looking at those 17 MPOs, that the vast majority had over 90% representation on that MPO board from elected officials. There's some differences in how the other transportation agencies were reflected in that membership. But I will point out along the transit column, public transit was always represented, whether that was overlap between the Board of County Commissioners or having an independent seat. And then the last factor that was considered in developing this scenario was just the population growth. As we all know, Hillsborough County is growing rapidly. And the bulk of that growth is happening in the unincorporated county. About 70% of Hillsborough County's population resides in the unincorporated county per the 2020 census. So we took that information and staff developed 3 membership scenarios and brought that before the policy committee in March and April. And the option that the policy committee preferred, although it was a 5-to-1 vote, was that elected officials would be voting members of the TPO board. So that would be the 4 jurisdictional representatives, Hillsborough County, Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City, as well as the school board. And those officials who are appointed or staff would still remain on the TPO board, but in a non-voting technical advisor position consistent with how FDOT is represented on the TPO board. So before I get into the slide showing what that proposal looks like, I wanted to just quickly demonstrate or show the data on how this proposal aligns with the population. As mentioned earlier, unincorporated Hillsborough County has about 69% of the vote. This proposal suggests increasing Hillsborough County's votes from 5 to 7, even though that would still not make it proportional. It would be 54% for that area compared to 69, while the City of Tampa, Plant City, and Temple Terrace are closer. All right, so let me first orient you to this table, and I would love to get some feedback at this point. Oops. So the column on the left shows that proposed scenario. The TPO board hasn't voted on it, but they encouraged bringing this to all the staff, all the different committees. So what this is showing is those 2 main changes that I described. The first of which being Hillsborough County having an increase of votes from 5 to 7. And then in the second part of the table, under technical advisors, all those agencies who have appointed or staff officials serving wouldn't have a voting position, but they would have a non-voting technical advisory position consistent with FDOT. So I'll pause here and get any reactions. We're really curious on your feedback to bring back to the board in just a week or 2.
Yes, Gina.
You can imagine we have some thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the hard work that has been put into this. I know it, doing the analysis of all of this has been very complicated, and really appreciate all the staff effort in it. I think that when you look at other major airports and you look at other areas, they're all owned by the county. So that's when you look at some of the stuff, the slides in here, when you look at Fort Lauderdale Airport, Miami Airport, those are county departments. The same way with our friends over in Pinellas. And, we, aside from we generate a huge economic development here, things happen in and around us. And we feel that it is not only our obligation to be part of those conversations, not just for our passengers, but for our employees. We support over 11,000 jobs. And so when you're talking about the areas in the region that are really transportation challenged right now, they're our employees. They're the ones that are trying to get from Pasco to, from outer areas that can't find places to live, quite frankly, in the city of Tampa right now. So the other piece of this is that some of the conversation at the policy committee has been a little bit misinformed by saying that we are for profit. We are a government agency the same way that the county is, the same way that the city is. We are created by statute. We were just reauthorized. Our money is public, but we don't take taxpayer dollars, and we're very proud of that. We have ad valorem taxing authority. We choose not to use it because we are financially responsible. We also have representation from the county commission and the city of the mayor of Tampa. Our 3 board members report to the governor. They are appointed by the governor. Joe and I serve as voting members of the TPO, selected by our board, not by Joe Lapano. And so at the end of the day, if people on the policy committee don't like how we're voting, they need to be reaching out to the people that we answer to. And those are the same people that they answer to, the public ultimately. Our board members were appointed by the governor. All 3 of them were appointed by the current governor. We just really feel like this is, it's discouraging because, we've supported all for transportation. We've done everything we can on our end to make sure that when people arrive here, that they understand, that they have transportation options. Most people don't realize when they fly into Tampa that just because you cross a bridge, some of this stuff that's happening on transportation, we feel like we should still be sitting at the table. And again, when you look at other communities, when you look at other major areas with major international airports, the other three are represented at those levels, whether it's, to our friends to Orlando with the combined TPO, or you look to the south where there are departments of the county, and the same thing with the port. And so you're actually taking off the people that do transportation for a living from a transportation board. And this whole thing of, well, we could have conversations with them. So the same people who are saying that refuse to meet with us, even about our own issues. And so we really are, we're a little bit, it's just, we feel like we're people that are actually doing transportation, same with our friends at Heart via the port, and we're being removed because the members don't like how we're voting.
Okay, thank you, Gina.
I have a question about the chart on, I'm looking at the one board representation comparison. I want to make sure I'm reading it correctly. So when I look at Metro Plan Orlando, I look at Highway Express Authority, Aviation Authority, and Public Transit, is what that's saying, is that all three of those are independent organizations and all three do have are voting members on the Metro Plan Orlando NPO?
Yes.
So so what staff is proposing is doing something different.
Well, this is with direction from the policy committee, and the response there was because there would be 7 members of the BOCC, there would be a great overlap between Heart's board and the BOCC to represent those interests.
But I guess what I'm getting at is that when the staff's proposing of stripping some votes off of the MPO board, my first question is, well, how are other MPOs in the state doing it? And I just want to make sure I'm looking at Metro plans correctly, that they give a vote to their highway, to their expressway authority, to their aviation authority, and to their public transit agency. So,
Yeah, if you're reading correctly.
Do we have any, or do you have more of your presentation, or would you like all discussion now?
Discussion now would be great to have one more slide to recap next steps.
Okay, so I think, all right, do we have further discussion right now on the.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, it's Clay Hollis. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
As you can imagine, a lot of similar comments to what Gina was saying. It's important and I think relevant to this body that there are folks on this board in a voting capacity that aren't just representatives, but are actually making the transportation within the county work and within this region work. So I know Gina really covered a lot of the same type of points that the port would make. And, we're in a similar situation where we've got county commissioner serves on our board, Mayor of Tampa serves on our board. We've got 5 appointees from the governor's office. And so we try our best to be sure that we're good stewards of the very small public dollar that we take and put that all towards capital programs to help our county, help our region. So kind of removing an extra voice on this TPO board would be, again, I think discouraging is probably the right word to use. I know this was winked at the start of the presentation, but I'd be interested to hear if there was any additional kind of consideration as to, why looking at this right now, and if there was any sort of other inciting factor to take this action right now. And like I said, I know we talked about it briefly at the start, but that would be the only other concern from me right now.
Okay, Elizabeth, do you want to address the question as to why now?
Yes, really the timing is just because of the decennial census and that population information. It's every 10 years, so this was about the time that these conversations would happen.
Okay. Leland, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I think there's some really good points made that I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to abstain from voting. I just don't think it's something that in my role on this committee is appropriate to weigh in on. So to me, it's something for the board, decision for the board, not for, we're talking about, participate on this advisory committee maybe, but I just don't feel comfortable voting on this. So I'm going to abstain for voting.
My only comment, I mean, I don't know the logistics exactly on abstaining. I think that's fine, but just remember this is only, anything we do here is a recommendation for the board. So it's not, this wouldn't cause the action to occur. It would just be our opinion on what as a committee we believe is in the right direction or not in the right direction. So, but as far as I believe you have that right to abstain.
For the record, Melissa Leinhardt, I'm also going to be abstaining because the planning commissioners haven't waited on this item.
Okay. Well, that was one of my questions actually was what kind of feedback have we heard, both from planning commission and also, I mean, from the county commissioner level, are they endorsing this, to have all 7 numbers be represented? That's another, I mean, they probably would be fine with that, but I mean, I'm just wondering, is that, is this all being discussed and then they didn't want to have those additional numbers? But more importantly, the feedback on some of these in some of these groups that are being taken off voting rights certainly needs to be heard, needs to be understood. I don't feel comfortable with the limited knowledge that we have supporting it just because of that reason, because I don't really know the feedback. Certainly, the airport has objected. And my first thought was, not really digging into the details too much, but my first thought was we need to have representations from some of the key players on the transportation realm. Even though I agree with the mindset of elected officials being accountable for the community, and that's certainly true, but there are factors that weigh in, certainly somebody with the port and the airport, I think are ones, and there could be certainly arguments made for other of the groups that are on there. So it's, I don't know, that's just my opinion, but from there, I guess I'll ask for further discussion from committee right now.
One other comment about the table, under Fort Pinellas Public Transit Agency, you've got represented by Board of County Commissioners. PSD is an independent authority. They're not part of the county government.
They're not run through the county. Okay, I'll correct that.
Well, go ahead and you have one more slide, why don't you?
Just out of curiosity, how long has the status quo been in place?
Since 10 years ago, and at that point, I believe the planning commission was added, maybe the airport and the port.
We were on it before. I think it was the planning commission was added, and that was when District 7 became the de facto.
The non-voting.
Is there some sort of deadline or timeline that this decision has to be?
There is a pretty lengthy review process. So of course, the TPO board would need to decide how they would like to continue to have their membership. And then from there, we would need approval from the 4 jurisdictions, and then it would go to FDOT and then the governor.
But I mean, is there, so, a lot of these issues that come before us that have to be done by May 1st or June 1st, is there a certain drop dead date for this?
Not that's been communicated to me. I don't know if Beth is online, can speak to that. I'll find out that answer.
Okay. All right, why don't you go ahead and do your last slide, and then I think we'll probably have more discussion and finalizing it up.
And if I could quickly, Brian, I'm sorry I had a lapse. It's recorded that way for former Pinellas because just on their board, it's only county commissioners, I believe. Very quickly, just to recap next steps, again, we are going to all the committees. So we've been to EPAC, Global Roads. We'll go to the Citizen Advisory Committee on Wednesday, get input from those committees, and then present that information to the board on their May 11th meeting. And then from there, like I described, we go to all the local governments.
Has this gone in front of other committees already?
It has. It's gone in front of EPAC, Livable Roadways, and then of course the policy committee.
what has been your, I mean, I know it'd be hard to detail each one, but what is the general opinion of the committee been?
There's been a lot of really good discussion. So for livable roadways, they actually voted to keep it the same, keep the current apportioned membership the same. At EPAC, there was an official position, but there was conversation and both supporting of it as well as wanting to keep it the same.
It sounds like it's been kind of mixed.
Yeah, it's been a really lively discussion.
Okay. Okay, well, so with that, we need to look towards taking action. Does anybody else have an opinion or the discussion they'd like to make or on the record, anything they want to put on the record?
So Mayor Tiva, just to follow up with Melissa Leinhardt, I will also be abstaining.
Okay, Sophia indicated she would also abstain if we do have a vote. Anybody online that have anything? Okay,
This is
so I'm sorry, who is this?
Danny Jorgensen. I agree with the discussion so far. I wouldn't want to vote on this either.
I had a procedural question. If several members abstain, that goes below what is normally considered a quorum, can you still vote?
That would be a question for, I would throw up to the next level, but let's kind of hold that for a second because let's see where we go if we even have enough support for the motion. So that was my next question is what exactly is the motion you're looking for today?
A motion to either support as is, or if there's another scenario that the committee would like to support. And all this information will be, again, just shared with the TPO board, so that's really most valuable. What the position of the team is.
Okay. Whoever's online, double check your mic. We're getting a little feedback. Okay. So again, I don't want to speak for the whole committee, but we have a lot of concerns for abstention. We've heard some opinions about not really being in agreement with the direction it's going. Do we have anybody that wants to step forward thinking that they like the direction it's going and wants to support it, you know, forward? I don't disagree with the mindset of where it's going. I just think that there's underrepresented by some of the other groups. And there is a concern at a certain point when you have too many members on board. I think if you have too many people voting, then it becomes diluted somewhat because your vote gets diluted if you know, you're one of 20 rather than one. So there is that balance that I think needs to be made. But okay, with no one online weighing in, I guess let me ask this: is there anybody that would make a motion to support it as proposed? Thank you, Chair. Okay, so with that, and again, I'm not an expert on this procedural stuff. I'm just kind of acting in this capacity. So we don't have support, and I think we've expressed our concerns as to why. Some of it, I think, is we like to hear maybe at a future meeting if there's some more feedback from the parties that have an official opinion that could maybe be read into the record about whether they're in agreement or not agreement with how they're being affected, might assist in whether it wants to go forward. Certainly the group wants to have a cohesive, the committee wants to have a cohesive board, but I think these concerns are enough to where we can't vote in support of it. So can we leave it at that as basically a non-vote of support, or do we need to go more formal into like a vote of not support?
I'm not sure from like a procedural, I've been taking notes on what everybody was saying, and I was going to include that in the presentation to the board. So I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't really know myself either, so this is, I would leave it like that to say, well, if it's an action item number, if we're required to take action, then we'll make a subsequent vote. But if we're not required to take action based on the discussion leading to a failure to acquire a motion to approve, we would leave it at that. And so the committee's recommendation is that we're not approving it based on lack of having a motion to approve. If it comes back, let me just state for the record, if it comes back that we have to formally make a motion, then we can discuss. And I think we would have a motion not to approve based on, the comments that were made today. So that's in the record. That should pretty much summarize what our opinion is. Unless anybody has comment, let me make sure to throw that out there. Okay, if everybody's in agreement with that logic, I think that's okay.
Yeah, you summed it up well.
Trying to be mediator here. The DPC, we're not really, we talk in this fight. So, I mean, I witness to the end of order as DPC. That doesn't make much sense, but there's certain need to be concerned and considered. So, okay, with that, we will move on. And thank you for all the presentation and all the discussion. All right, next up, I can get my things in order here. Sorry, I got my pages flipped around. Okay, next up is the public participation plan.
Oh, Danita, we can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, all right, great. All right, so good afternoon. I'm Davita Franklin. I'm with, of course, the TPO. I'm the the Community Relations Coordinator, and I'm going to present to you the Measures of Effectiveness report, which is a part of our public participation plan. So just give me 1 second here. Thanks. Okay, are you looking at my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let me come out and go back in. Here we go. All right, so why are we focusing on public participation? Well, it provides opportunities for involvement and it ensures inclusivity as well as responsiveness, creativity, and flexibility. And it also maximizes the TPO's exposure while minimizing costs. And so this report evaluates our public engagement, it recommends improvements, and it demonstrates that we really do care about what the public thinks. So this report is going to look at visibility and productivity, which is basically what we produce and our products that the public that they're able to engage with and take a look at and give feedback on. Also participation opportunities, which are options to, I'm sorry, my screen switched, so can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me, all right, so options to interact. The public has to interact with the TPO. Also, public interest and feedback, which is the feedback that we collected, as well as input results, or how feedback is used in our reports and studies. So the first section, visibility and productivity, I'm giving you here just a snapshot of some of the information that's in the report. So here you see that we've collected the amounts of newsletters and meeting packets and reports, as well as brochures and maps and flyers that we produced since 2010. And we put these figures in the report, as well as the amount of news articles that we appeared in from 2020 to 2021, as well as the YouTube views that we've had on our YouTube page since 2017. And here we have 2 examples of how we've been very visible and productive. So here on the left, you have our Executive Director, Beth Alden. And here, this is demonstrating the hybrid or the virtual and then hybrid environment that we were able to create for folks to engage with the TPO. And that, of course, as you know, because of the COVID pandemic, really created a great avenue for folks to be where they were and still engage with us. And now we're able to accommodate folks even as we've returned back into an in-person environment. so we can accommodate more of the community than before. And then on the right side, you have the non-discrimination and equity plan outreach photo. That's just one of many that we have. So our staff went out into the field into different environmental justice areas, and they collected survey information. And we also held a storytelling forum, as well as met with different community organizations and faith-based groups. So for participation opportunities, again, how are we giving the folks an ability to give us feedback and to also be able to take in whatever the information is that we're producing? Well, that's, of course, in our committee meeting right now and all the committee meetings that we have and board meetings. So this chart here shows you all of the meetings that happened during 2020 and 2021, as well as how many people attended and how many people made public comments. But here you have an infographic that sums it up for you. So we had about 3,900 people who participated in board and committee meetings in 2020 and 21. And we also had 56 speakers at those meetings, as well as 940 people who received email agendas. And for the events that the TPO either hosted or participated in, those events, 20% of them were in environmental justice areas. For public interest and feedback, so we actually had 17 studies and reports throughout 2020 and 2021. Here's just 4, which are great examples of how we were able to get feedback from the public. So I mentioned before the non-discrimination and equity plan update. Well, we were able to, again, canvass communities that normally do not have a voice in the planning process. So we were able to gain not just their voice, but the voice of all members, or a great majority of the different demographics in our community. And then for the Sheldon Road Corridor technical study, that looked at 8 high injury net corridors. And so what we were able to do is engage the communities around those corridors and get some feedback from them. And then the annual evaluation of the community transportation coordinator, or the Sunshine Line, well, we actually, we received about 1,300 surveys over those that 2-year period that gave feedback on what their thoughts are about the options that they have to take the Sunshine Line. And then for the Transportation Improvement Plan, so for 2021, we did have a lot of people who were concerned about the downtown interchange, and we received 51 comments either in advance of the meeting or during the meeting that in the discussion about the downtown interchange. And so one point about that feedback is the board did discuss with the TPO's attorney about what options could be looked at to address some of the concerns from the public. However, the project was already too far into a design phase, so no action was taken at that time. So for public input, we have 2 examples of, again, we collect feedback. Well, how do we use this information in our reports and studies? So I just gave an example with the tip. Now we have 2 more. So with the Plant City Circulator, on the left, you see a map, and this is actually a map of one of several alternatives that were given to the public for them to give some feedback on what they would prefer for Circulator in Plant City. So the public did choose this particular route, and as a result, the TPO made a recommendation to HART and also to Plant City to do further research and also to find a funding source for that route. And then on the right here, you see a photo from the Safe Access to Parks pilot study. So with that study, we engaged the public at 3 different parks, Copeland Park, Sulphur Springs, and also the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. And we asked them, hey, what do you think would make your route to this park or your route through the park safer? And as a result of the input that we received, we made recommendations for those parks to create painted safety markings that would delineate where a bike path or a sidewalk may end and where the street may begin, as well as widening paths and bike paths, walking paths and bike paths. And so here's just a few successes that we have had in terms of our collaboration with other organizations and planning partners. So on the upper left, you have the Flip Junior Ambassadors Program, and we partnered with the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association to bring the idea of transportation planning to the Tampa Heights Town and Country, and the Palm River communities. And what was wonderful about that is we were again giving these communities that normally don't have a voice in, or haven't had historically a voice in the planning process. Now we're giving the kids the opportunity, not just the community, but the kids and their households to be able to learn more about the transportation planning process. And then on the upper right-hand corner, that's a photo of the Morning of Remembrance, which is an event that the TPO hosts and helps to plan every year. And that is to commemorate folks who unfortunately passed away from traffic violence. And then you have the lower right-hand corner, and that's our Garden Steps program, which is a collaboration with, we collaborate with a lot of different organizations to help bring healthy eating and gardening to communities. One of those organizations is the Coalition of Community Gardens of Tampa Bay. And then finally, you have the Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit, which we did host for 2 years prior. This past year in 2021, we hosted some workshops, mobile workshops, where folks could hop on their bike and learn about bike safety. So for input results, we do have a few recommendations that we met from the 2020 report. So the 2020 report recommended to increase citizen engagement in environmental justice areas and to use short videos to inform about the transportation planning process and our work in terms of our reports and studies, as well as flexibility in public plan requirements and seeking feedback on public engagement strategies. So this little grid here shows you how good we did. So on the left-hand side, you have, again, those recommendations, and on the right-hand side, you have the ways that we met them. So the Non-Discrimination and Equity Plan Update, as well as the Flip Junior Ambassador Program, was a way that we better engage in environmental justice areas. And then we did sponsor 83 Degrees videos to produce some videos about planning, transportation planning, as well as we created in-house the 1 Minute Matters video shorts to also help demystify the process, as well as educate the public on transit-oriented development. And then being more flexible, being virtual, and having a hybrid environment. As you see, I'm right now in the hybrid environment. So we did a great job, again, at taking our work to where the people are and now inviting them back in. And then for getting more feedback, our Transportation Improvement Program Amendment Pilot. So as you may know, we have amendments that come out for the Transportation Improvement Program throughout the year, and we started a pilot. So that way we could get more people involved in the process of giving feedback. And what that entailed was us creating a dedicated web page, putting out road signs, making targeted Facebook posts, and also sharing on our other social media platforms, as well as putting out emails to different organizations. And so that was great because we were able to get more feedback on our amendments than what we had gotten in the past. And so for this report, our recommendations are to increase our social media tools. So right here, you have a shot of TikTok, but it goes beyond that. It also goes to Nextdoor and any other way that we can be more present on social media to reach groups that we have not reached that much before. And as you know, the TikTok platform does attract a lot of young people. So that would be a great way for us to capture that audience. And then to also institutionalize the proactive outreach for the 10th Amendments that I mentioned before. So that was just a pilot. Now moving forward, we're going to put it into our public participation plan, where we will put out road signs and have a dedicated page and social media posts and press releases for all of our 10th Amendments. And then here's an example of just a post that we can put to help create more engagement and knowledge about the TPO's roles and responsibilities in the transportation planning process. And so this can be something that can go on social media where we just say, did you know? And then, you know, ... whatever it is that we feel we want to focus on for that moment to, again, demystify that process. We're going to use focus groups more often. We were very successful in our engagement with the Non-Discrimination Plan update. And what we found is that people will give you more input and have greater discussion that reaches deeper than maybe what they can't check off in a box on a survey. And then finally, build a culture of awareness. So I mentioned before that we reached out to these environmental justice areas. Well, now we're going to do that even more. And in particular, for this upcoming year, we're going to make sure that with our initiatives that we reach out to faith-based organizations. And that is it. I thank you for your time. And our recommendation is to approve the measures of effectiveness report.
Okay, thank you very much, Kavita. Do we have any comments on the report?
This is Nicole. I'll just say I'm grateful to see something like this put together so you can kind of see, comprehensively what efforts have been underway. And then there's a way to actually, in the future, have something to look back on and say, are we doing this? Did we actually, follow the recommendations? And I do also want to say that I think that the outreach and community engagement methods that were used for the non-discrimination plan were awesome and a great model for, really going out to the community and engaging people where they are. I think we build a lot of things to have people to come to us and answer things, but that was a great example. So I'm grateful to see that in the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Any other comments?
Comment?
Please.
Yeah, I like the points about the non-discrimination, the method there, going door to door, doing small groups. Because I think when you expect people to come to you, they just don't have the time. You look at a lot of the results of some of these other types of efforts, and it's a very small number of participants, really, across the community. So we got community feedback. We got 10 people, 51 people. How is that represented? Is that meaningful feedback? It's very limited, the perspectives that you're getting. So I see a lot of outreach activities and very few, I think, really get representative input from the community. So yeah, so great. I like that too, the approach you took there. It seems like maybe that's getting you towards more representative feedback, which is the goal. So more of that and more, I wish on some of these things, we'd be more transparent that, yeah, we got feedback, but it was very limited. It's probably not representative. We got 5 people that want this type of improvement. Okay, that doesn't really, how much are we going to weigh that feedback from the handful of people that provided input on the huge transportation issues? Anyway. So yeah, I like where you're headed. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? I mean, I certainly understand what Leland was commenting on, and it is difficult. We know, we've seen it to get public engagement. I know our office too, and environmental stuff is not always engaged by a large number. We have to fight hard to get them data. So I know they do the best they can. I applaud them, TPO, for all their efforts. They work hard to try to get that information out. Echo. Okay, so and I really, because one of the things I had noted, this was a recent thing for us, is I really like the idea that you're going to engage more on social media. We recently ran a contest and got our submittals from the high schools through email, and the feedback I got was email was so old, that's not used anymore, which of course to us is modern business, and it's more about dropping in the boxes and the videos and stuff like that. So when you get, and it's important, especially with the high school age kids, but we're hitting that demographic, they're starting to drive, they're starting to understand that, the needs of transportation and so forth. So I think engaging on a platform that's more common that they use is a great idea. And maybe consider too, this may be longer term, is there opportunity in the curriculum for the driver's education courses in high school that maybe, you add some element about, overarching transportation discussions, just something to maybe think about. But other than that, I appreciate the summary and also the efforts that I've seen you guys make over the last several years have been involved. So with that, is there any other comments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the public participation plan measures of effectiveness report?
I'll make it. Brian Pissarro.
Brian Pissarro with the motion to approve. Do I have a second? Brian, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Nikita. All right, next up, I believe, is Johnny with the TIP priorities update.
Let's see Johnny on here. Is somebody from Johnny's team going to present on this item?
Johnny, you should be unmuted, and I can see that your microphone says you're unmuted. I made Vishaka the presenter.
Can you see my screen?
You sure can.
This is the right screen? Okay. Johnny should be on the phone. I try to call him maybe.
We can see that he's on as an attendee. He is trying to join
I don't know
by
if he's
phone, but
muted.
there should be audio now. Johnny, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
You can hear me now? That's great. All right. Apologize for the difficulties. I hope that my audio holds up. Johnny Wong, TPO staff, and I'm here to present you with a preliminary draft of this year's TIP update. Next slide, please. A lot of this is background information. Many of you have been through this presentation more than once, so I'll breeze through the information that I think is necessary to help you understand what the TIP is and why we have to accomplish that. Next slide. I'll begin by explaining the TIP by comparing it to another one of our planning products, which is the Long Range Transportation Plan. The LRTP is a very broad and visionary long-term vision. It describes what the county could be like over the next 25 years, but because it's such a long time frame, it's impossible to provide a ton of detail about all of the projects that will get completed over that time period. So rather than leaning on the LRTP, we also produce a transportation improvement program, which is only 5 years. It represents the first 5 years of the 25-year LRTP. And within that document, we can get a lot more specific and accurate about the details of projects that will be coming up in the near future. Next slide, please.
One second,
the TIP is one of...
I'm just trying to put it in the presentation and change the screen, so give me a second.
That's fine. While you work that out, I'll explain the next slide. So the TIP is one of the MPO's most important planning products, and there are a lot of rules that pertain to the TIP. So some of the rules that I want to highlight and share with you all are that the TIP has to be consistent with the adopted LRTP. Vishaka, you can go to the next slide. It has to be developed in coordination with FDOT and HART. Has to include regionally significant projects, any projects that are funded with FHWA or Federal Transit Administration dollars, has to be cost feasible, developed in consultation with the public, and we have to identify criteria for how we prioritize projects that are seeking funding. Next slide, please. I like to think of the TIP as 3 different lists that play together. Vishaka, can you move forward one more slide? I'll explain each of these on the next few slides of the presentation. So the first one is projects which were at one time on the list of priority projects seeking funding. Construction funding was delivered for all of these projects. So now they have funds programmed for construction, and they will remain on this list until construction is complete. The reason why they stay on table 1 until they're complete is just to show that there's still community support to accomplish that project. Next slide, please. The second table or list is actually the bulk, or like the heaviest lift for developing the TIP update every year. This is a list of candidates for new funding. In other words, they're projects that are seeking funding for a specific phase to move forward. Within Table 2 this year, there are a few planning studies, some PD&Es, some projects seeking design or PE, and a lot of them actually are seeking construction funds. Next slide, please. Table 3 is all other projects. Any project that has funding attached to it for any phase over the next 5 years will appear in Table 3. Folks don't tend to pay a ton of attention to that because not all of them are of major significance. Like a lot of the projects that will fall on here are miscellaneous category, herbicide and pesticide applications. But they come first in chronological order, meaning that there is funding for these projects to move forward this next year. So the list is quite large. We also include projects from all of our partner agencies. So anything that's in a local government CIP will also appear in Table 3 for planning consistency. Next slide, please. Going back to Table 2, again, this is like the heaviest lift for TIP production, and it's the most intensive for our team to develop. After we solicit projects from each of our partner agencies, we categorize those projects. We identify data sources to help us forecast the performance benefits of each of those projects if they were to get completed. We end up, before we finalize this list, we end up shuffling projects around quite a bit. And eventually we finalize that list, and it's part of the TIP that is adopted at the public hearing every June. Next slide, please. When Table 2 is finally complete, we take a look at each project line by line, and based on the implementing agency, the project type, and the cost, TPO staff will get together and make recommendations for which funding source to go after. So when I show you this draft on the next few slides, you'll see that because the new federal funding bill was adopted this past year, there are new grant opportunities for some of these projects to go after. Next slide, please. And then once the TIP is adopted in June, new projects will be included on the mapping tool, which is available on our website. Next slide. One more. So without further ado, I'll run you through tables 1 and 2. Table 3 was not complete in time to mail out. That will be made available on our website in short order, and we'll send everyone out a notification when that's available for review. But to begin with, Table 1 is existing priorities that are funded for construction. We reformatted this list completely for this year. We reformatted it last year as well, but this year we wanted to redo it to make it a little bit more clear to the public what information they would need to understand each of these projects. We removed some projects from this list that have been completed, and we took a look at the year in which construction funds were programmed and made an assessment. So once construction funds are no longer being programmed, we assume that that means the project is complete. But I will give you all a homework assignment at the end of this. The one project that we're certain about, which is complete, is HART's vehicle tracking CAD AVL system. A number of projects received construction funding this year, so there are some new additions to Table 1, namely Green Spine Phase 2B, Dale Mabry. This is a safety project on Dale Mabry from Mango to Pearl Ave, a safety project on Fowler from I-275 to I-75 was moved onto this to Table 1. Another project on Twigs from Ashley to Nebraska, Spelman Greenway from 17th to 19th Trailhead. Cross Bay Ferry operations funds are included. The West Shore Interchange, which we brought forward to you as a TIP amendment several months ago, Downtown Interchange, and a segment of TB Next on 275 from MLK to Hillsborough. Next slide, please. And then producing Table 2, projects that are seeking new funding. So the priorities list. We take a look at the percent of transit assets that are, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, so after these projects are submitted to us for prioritization, we take a look at the percent of transit assets that are not in a state of good repair. For bridge projects, we take a look at sufficiency rating, and we rank the projects that way. Some of the new priorities that are going to be added to Table 2 this year are bus replacements, bus maintenance, midlife overhaul, bus stop capital repairs, T-BARTA van pool operations, and City of Tampa submitted a request for Bayshore Boulevard seawall reconstruction. Next slide, please. We received a number of Vision Zero safety projects this year, quite a few actually. And so in developing Table 2 this year, we had to make some modifications to make the list usable and to actually identify projects for, that are good candidates for funding. So the way that we assembled Table 2 Vision Zero projects, the first filter is construction readiness. So we started by filtering out projects that were seeking funding for construction, and then we ordered them down the list. So construction, and then design and construction, and then design, and then PD&E, and then planning studies toward the bottom. And if a phase was not identified for funding, those kind of remained at the very bottom of the list. Once we had that initial sort, we then took a look at the quantitative criteria, which is fatal plus serious injury crashes per mile. There are, of course, a number of projects, and a lot of them are kind of clustered around that 8 crashes per mile milestone. So if there are 2 projects that are within about 1.5 crashes per mile, we broke the tie based on the percent of the project miles that are located within an environmental justice area. And that's intended to award projects that have benefits to disadvantaged communities. Some of the new projects that are added to this list this year are one at Hillsborough, or one on Hillsborough Avenue at Sawyer Road, and Hillsborough Ave at Town and Country Boulevard. Those are both intersection projects from the county. Another project on Lois Avenue from Cleveland to Boy Scout Boulevard. Several intersection projects. One is at US 301 at Palm River Road, and 3 more at US 301, Harney, Stacy, and McIntosh Roads. Another on Mango Road from MLK to US 92, Lynn Turner Road from Ehrlich to Gunn Highway, 78th Street from Causeway Boulevard to Palm River, North 15th Street from Fowler to Fletcher, Fletcher Avenue from Armenia to Nebraska, another intersection project at US 301, Sims Road at US 301, CR 39 at Lithia Pinecrest, a complete street project on Habana from MLK to Hillsborough, Zeal Street from Dale Mabry to Armenia, Bird Street from Florida to Nebraska, 15th Street from Lake Ave to Palm, Manhattan from Gandy to Euclid, Sheldon from Hillsborough to Waters, and finally McDill from Beta Bay to Kennedy. There's actually even more, and I'll explain why not all of them were added to the Vision Zero list. Next slide, please. We had a handful of additions to the Smart Cities category, and the way that we rank these projects are based on the Smart Cities matrix score for Smart Cities tech-oriented projects. For more traditional intersection improvements, we take a look at travel time reliability and minutes of delay. So the new additions to Table 2 Smart Cities category, the City of Tampa submitted a project for downtown signal replacements and some bridge control technology. HART submitted a request for a fiber optic ring that goes across jurisdictions. There were a number of signal replacements on county roads that were requested by the City of Tampa. Some of those locations are Cypress at Armenia and Howard, Henderson at Lois, Habana at Columbus, Himes at Gandy, Manhattan at El Prado, Manhattan at Beta Bay, and then Church at Beta Bay. Next slide, please. Our Real Choices When Not Driving category, to prioritize projects in this category, we take a look at the population density within a walkable distance of the trail or the bike path. Most of the projects that fall into this category are active transportation and transit. However, this year, because we received so many safety projects, we had to redirect some of those projects into Real Choices When Not Driving. And the logic behind this is that they may have benefits to complete or improve network connections as well as safety. So any safety projects that had fewer than 3 crashes per mile, we moved into the Real Choices category. Some of the additions to Real Choices are a project at 109th Ave from Nebraska to 30th Street, Ashley Drive from Tyler to Laurel, Dale Mabry at Spruce, Hannah from Nebraska to 40th Street, 14th Street from Columbus to I-4, Main Street from Armenia to North Boulevard, a safety project at Waters and Florida Mining Boulevard intersections, Brush Street from Whiting to Kennedy, and DOT submitted a request for a number of sidewalk gaps to be filled on state roads. Next slide, please. The last project category is major investments for economic growth. Any project that connects people to jobs or adds capacity, like fixed guideway transit projects, widenings, or even just generally projects that are somewhat expensive and which would be difficult for the TPO to fund using discretionary grants are put into the major investments category. And this year marks a little bit of a shift in our approach. If there was a safety project, we did not necessarily bundle it or put it into the Vision Zero category. If it was more than $5 million, we kind of made a judgment call to put those into this category because not only are they safety projects, but they're also major investments. So some of the additions to this category this year are Borough Range Street Bridge Rehab, Cass Street Bridge Repair, Cross Bay Ferry Service, a safety project on 30th Street from Yukon to Fowler, and a safety project on Inner Bay Boulevard from West Shore to Bay Shore. Next slide, please. We're about a month away from the TPO public hearing to adopt the TIP, a little more than a month, in fact, but some of the next steps before we get to the public hearing are, next slide, please, regional coordination. We are still finalizing a list of projects submitted to us by 2 regional working groups, namely the TRIP, which is Transportation Regional Incentive Program working group. These priorities are regional in nature and have an impact on economic development. That group has met once already, and we expect to finalize their list of new priorities within a week or 2. We're also waiting to finalize projects from the multi-use trail working group, and the timeline is about the same. Next slide, please. So this is the point in the presentation where I'm going to give everyone a homework assignment. After this presentation, I'll send out meeting invites to remind you of this date, but we need your help in reviewing Table 1 and confirming project statuses, let's say by sometime next week, would be helpful. That gives us enough time to QA/QC the list and post it to our website for review, and then include it in the next round of committee mailouts. Just to remind you, Table 1 is a list of projects that are priorities that have received construction funding. We make our best educated guess based on when construction funding is no longer allocated to those projects, but it would be nice if we had the agencies give us a definitive yes or no as to whether or not that project is complete. And if it's complete, it can definitely come off of the table. We would also like your help reviewing Table 2. We do believe that we have added all of the partner agencies' project requests and evaluated them, but it would be great if you all could take a look at that list, and if we missed anything, let us know early so that we still have time to calculate those benefits and then reprioritize the list. We have to have tables 1, 2, and 3 in the TIP document posted on our website in time to give the public a 30-day review period. That puts us at about next week. So, we'll work with you and try to get those tables finalized and the draft posted as soon as possible. The date that I'm shooting for is May 9th. Throughout the rest of the month and early June, we will be presenting the draft TIP and priority list to our committees once again. Of course, whenever it's posted, the public will have an opportunity to weigh in. And then on June 8th, we're going to have the TIP public hearing in the evening. Next slide, please. The TAC will see this presentation again next month. But now I'd like to open it up for questions and discussion.
All right, thanks, Johnny. Do we have any questions on the summary that Johnny provided? I know a lot of these projects we've seen talked about before. Some of the new ones are maybe new to me. No comment? All right, with that, I think, Johnny, we can move forward. I encourage everybody, especially certain of you all that have more direct input on some where these projects are, if you can provide his request for the status update on where they are in construction or completion, and, any cleanup of the list. These are some lengthy lists, so even if we're able to knock a couple of them off, it helps everything get examined going forward. So please follow up.
Yeah, that's great.
Appreciate that. And
all right,
Johnny, that's it for us. Thank you for the summary.
All right, thank you. We'll see you again next month.
Okay. All right, last item up is the Live, Grow, Thrive Tampa comp plan update.
Yes, hi there. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so my name is Alvaro. I'm with the Planning Commission, Alvaro Gabaldan, Planning Commission staff. I work on the special projects, environmental, and research team. And I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my computer, but I'm here just to give you a quick, this is not an action item. It's just a quick overview of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan update. This is a update to the city's comprehensive plan. The process was kicked off as of March, and we are currently in our first phase of, I'm sorry, this went to the wrong screen. I'm sorry about this. Okay, so we kicked off in March, and we're in our first phase, which is updating the city's plan vision. So these first couple slides are mostly just for the public about what a comprehensive plan is. So I know I'm talking to a lot of public servants here with familiarity with the comprehensive plan, but basically what we've been saying is that it's the long-range vision and goals for the city's future. It interacts with the zoning and land development code to regulate development, basically the physical environment that surrounds you. So in the comprehensive plan, you'll find land use, mobility, infrastructure, housing, and other chapters of policies that, like I said, influence your physical environment. So in this phase of the comp plan update, we're basically collecting feedback on themes that have emerged from outreach efforts that the city has already completed. So on this slide, you can see a couple of examples of these outreach efforts. So Tampa Moves, Resilient Tampa, those are two big and fairly recent studies that the city has just completed. In addition to studies that the Planning Commission and the TPO have conducted in-house. So we have data and public input from It's Time Tampa Bay and our non-discrimination and equity plan. So between these studies, we've got over probably 10,000 respondents or survey responses that our vision is preliminarily based on. So right now, like I said, we've collected those previous plans and outreach, and we've created a survey and condensed the previous outreach into vision themes. So as you can see by the starred box, we're currently collecting input on these themes. We hope to collect this input and then refine a vision that we will then go back to City Council to present in this summer around June. So the preliminary themes that we've pulled out of the previous public research, they can be sort of boxed up neatly into the Live, Grow, Thrive sort of branding. So first, I won't read all of these to you, but we've got some pretty broad like comp plan ideas here. So, creating a sense of place, creating a mix of uses along streets, housing and transportation choices. So basically, these are the what we heard from the community. We're going back to the community with these ideas and collecting another round of input. So like I said, we'll be going back to City Council this summer with a revised vision for the comp plan update. And then after that, we've got some more specific elements that we will be updating in the comp plan and collecting more specific public outreach on. So you can see we've got our water related sections happening in the fall, and in the winter, we're going to be working on a future land use assessment, looking at the policies in the comp plan there. So if there is any action from me speaking to you today, I would just really appreciate if everyone here could go to livegrowthrive2045.com and take our survey. And if you could share it with your neighbors or your family or just people that you interact with in the public that have some sort of stake in the City of Tampa, that would be great. So again, it's Live, Grow, Thrive 2045, or you can scan this QR code with your phone. So we just try to make this as shareable as possible, and just appreciate everybody's participation and opinions there. And if there are any more specific questions, this update, we're working with Stephen Benson, the Director of City Planning with the City of Tampa, and then the project managers are Jennifer Malone and Melissa Dickens. So you can find everybody's contact information on this slide. And my name was Alvaro Gabaldon. I'm assisting with this project as well. But yeah, I'll just go back to this QR code. It's pretty easy website to remember, Live, Grow, Thrive 2045, and just appreciate everybody's participation in this effort.
Okay, thank you, Alvaro. Do we have any comments on this? Let me say that I've had some experience with these comp plans, and it's quite a project when they have to be updated. And I know Hillsborough County has been working on theirs. I don't know if they're done, but I know they've been working on them one element at a time.
We are not done.
They're not done. I didn't think
We are almost done.
Yeah. So, and I know they're condensing it, which is a good thing. That was part of the
Streamlining.
Streamlining, yes. So, but these are, let me just say, these are important documents, and they can kind of be, just casually referenced, but they do get called upon. So to provide direction. And we talked earlier about there not being a lot of feedback on these issues. When he mentions going to this website, you could have a real say because they don't get a lot of comments sometimes. And you can have an issue that you really think needs to be addressed, and it's a chance to get some language put in there, even though there may not be a widespread group. Like I know I'll probably comment on noise because our agency is dealing with so many noise complaints. And the more congested the city's getting and the county's getting, the more problems we have. Now that goes beyond the scope of TPO, but I'm just, public service announcement, you can, you're eligible to provide comments or feedback. So, but certainly any transportation perspective, I know they'd love to hear about it. So do we have any other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Alvaro, the flu assessment that you mentioned in the winter, is that just the text of the comp plan, or is that an actual map assessment as well?
From what I understand, because we're actually providing the consultant with GIS data as well, it's more than just the text. So I think they're really, again, working with the city to understand how some of these things like density bonuses or like their urban village policies, if they've actually amounted to the desired like urban, structures, I guess. So it'll be just more than text.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Okay, thank you, Alvaro. Good luck on moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that's the end of the agenda items. Do we have any, let's see, old and new business, other, any old or new business that would like to be discussed? I'll make my real quick plug. I mentioned last month that we're having our clean air fair. It's this Thursday at lunchtime down at Bow Plaza. That's all I'll say. Like 40 exhibitors or something.
Actually, I do have one thing. You guys, we are in our big, every 10 years, we are required by the FAA to look at our master plan and how we're going to plan for growth for the next 20 years. We're in the middle of that process. We had our public outreach meetings last week. There'll be 2 more, but really, like, if you guys want to see what we're looking at, passenger projections, all that stuff, it's all on our master plan website. There's some, it's daunting to do this every, like you were saying, these big, it's like the big one that we do every 10 years. And it's just like, but there's a lot of really good information on there that really does like reflect the growth in the community and everything.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Good. Okay, no other items being heard. We'll reconvene in a month. I don't know the day, but it's probably the first Monday.
June 6th, I think.
June 6th, you know, you'll get your email prior. All right, thank you. All right, with that, I believe we will, hearing none, we will close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't read it fast enough to be able to comment on it. Sounds more like.
Make sure we're following the rules.